I think that what was happening was that very difficult interface between the message coming from the scientists and the politicians who are trying to manage that message internally for domestic security and externally in terms of its international relations. And I think that's where the block took place. But I have no doubt that the scientists and doctors who are on the front lines knew exactly what they were dealing with.
In Beijing, the government secretly started to ramp up its response. Xi Jinping issued new instructions on the outbreak. They were passed down to the country's local and provincial health departments by teleconference.
So the Associated Press's global investigative team obtained some documents. Shows that on January 14th, China's top health official, Ma Xiaowei, he told the country's public health institutions to prepare for a possible pandemic.
The documents contained warnings that the outbreak was likely to develop into a major public health event. China's most severe challenge since SARS.
We're saying things like, clustered cases means that human-to-human transmission is possible. They were saying things like, because of upcoming travel for China's biggest holiday of the year, the Spring Festival, means that this virus could be spreading widely.
They began monitoring people's temperatures at train stations and airports around Wuhan and started preparing hospitals across the country. The government did not announce these new emergency measures to the public, but it did authorize state media to now say that limited human-to-human transmission could not be ruled out.
新型冠状病毒感染的肺炎疫情，今天凌晨，武汉发布最新消息。
现有调查结果表明，尚未发现明确的人传人证据，不能排除有限人传人的可能，但持续人传人的风险较低。
那么，作为公众来讲呢，更重要的是做好我们个人的防护。那么，去医院这些场所戴口罩，注意手的卫生，注意通风。 那么减少我们到人群聚集的场所。
These documents reveal that central authorities were very alarmed about this virus by January 14th. But in public, again, they weren't really raising the alarm. They say things like, in the run-up to the two big meetings that China has every year, political meetings, we have to maintain social stability. There's a big emphasis on that. And that really points to the authorities not wanting to freak people out for political reasons.
The WHO called its first press conference on the outbreak.
So good morning, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today with you. So just to provide a little bit of background about what coronavirus is.
Publicly, the WHO had been sticking to the official Chinese line that there was no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission. But in front of the media, the agency's coronavirus expert appeared to contradict that.
So far with the current virus, we have limited human-to-human transmission, but what we are preparing for is the possibility that there could be.
That was my first press conference I've ever done. I presented the situation as I understood it and as we understood it from the data and as it relates to the guidance that we want to put out. And so when you have a respiratory pathogen, of course there would be human-to-human transmission. It's just where is that happening and what is the extent?
News that the WHO had confirmed human-to-human transmission spread fast.
The first report came up from Reuters. They sent out a news alert that the WHO said that there was limited human-to-human transmission. So I quickly sent an email to Geneva saying, like, can you confirm this? And started writing the story, you know, that the WHO had identified this as a virus that can spread easily among humans. And then they said, oh, they sent me an email and to say, oh, it was a misunderstanding. The preliminary investigations conducted by the authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission. There has been no evidence of limited human-to-human transmission.
The WHO told us it could not confirm human-to-human transmission because it was not on the ground in Wuhan.
We rely on the information that is provided to us. There's always more information that we need, always. Things were happening very, very quickly, and we were utilizing the information that we have, and we always go back to the countries to gather more information, and China was no different.
I do appreciate that it's, you know, early on in the pandemic, and there's this, you know, there's what we call the fog of war. People are trying to understand what's happening, and you don't want to put out information before you don't really know what's happening. But it made a lot of us think, me included, that, you know, this wasn't such a big deal after all. So I just left it at that and scrapped the story.
Outbreaks had now begun in other parts of China. People were turning up in hospitals in the major cities of Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. It was a week until Chinese New Year, and the country was on the move.
What typically happens that in the run-up to the Chinese New Year, close to 300 million migrant workers leave the cities where they worked to return to their hometowns to celebrate the Lunar New Year with their parents and loved ones.
The Chinese government was already preparing for a possible pandemic, but it did not order a lockdown or any travel restrictions.
We don't know why there was this delay. So I think the Chinese government was coming up with a plan of how to deal with the pandemic. My favorite speculation, I guess, is that it made the decisions to hide the news so that the Spring Festival migration can proceed without any hiccups, without any panics. If they had announced a lockdown, that would have meant that hundreds of millions of migrant workers would have been trapped in the major cities, which would have great implications for both public health but also for stability.
In Wuhan, life continued as normal. There was a college careers event, performances, and a New Year banquet attended by thousands.
It was unnecessary. You know, the Wuhan government could have canceled the banquet. Reporters talked to community workers, and they were afraid. And they tried to convince district-level officials to cancel the banquet, but the district-level officials would not do it. They refused to do it. My guess is that the order to not do anything unusual came from the very top, you know, some very senior level officials in Beijing.
On the 19th of January, 5 days after the pandemic instructions, the head of the Wuhan CDC was still reassuring the public.
我们已知患者的临床表现呢，一般以轻症为主。我们可以初步印象，那么只是新型冠状病毒的传染力不强，疫情可防可控。
Across China, around 100,000 people were now likely infected, according to subsequent studies. On January the 20th, 7 weeks after the first case, Beijing finally confirmed that the virus was transmitting from human to human. The news was delivered on national television by a revered 83-year-old doctor, Zhong Nanshan.
针对人传人，现在的这个判断是什么样的？
过去曾经是有风险或者是什么，现在是目前的这个资料表示呢，它是肯定的有人传人，所以呢，这个现在可以这么说，是肯定的有人传人的现象。
Zhong Nanshan is very respected. To have him go on CCTV to disclose this, to be the first person in China to say that this is what was going on, was jaw-dropping. And that was when cases started to skyrocket in Wuhan, and the numbers multiplied tenfold very fast.
"本台消息，近期湖北省武汉市等多个地区发生新型冠状病毒感染的肺炎疫情。截至1月20号18时，境内累计报告新型冠状病毒感染的肺炎病例224例，其中确诊病例217例，武汉市198例。
It was always going to be very difficult to control this virus from day one. But by the time we knew that it was transmissible human to human, I think the cat was out of the bag. It had already spread. That was the shot we had, and we lost it.
At 10 a.m. on the 23rd of January, Wuhan went into lockdown.
The city, at the heart of a public health crisis in China, is shutting its public transport network.
Flights cancelled, trains halted, highways blocked by police.
11 million residents have been told to stay put.
CDC Director George Gao told the public not to worry.
I'll be here, okay? Stay calm. We have the virus there. The virus is crazy. We do want to be crazy. Yeah. Calm down. That's right. 大家不要着急，是吧？病毒已经变得非常疯狂了。
大家喜欢和 SARS 比，一方面，这个病呢，确确实实现在看来，它和 SARS 比呢，它没有 SARS 那么强，出现了好多轻症。
But COVID-19 was much more transmissible than SARS. Wuhan's hospitals were overwhelmed. The Central Hospital received over 1,500 patients on a single day.
There were some patients who didn't need to die. There was nothing we could do. The medical resources were just too tight. It erupted too fast, and then there were just too many people infected. Without ventilators, without specific drugs, even without enough manpower, how were we going to save people? If you are unarmed on the battlefield, how can you kill the enemy? I believe that the true history needs to be remembered. We need to learn the lessons so that this doesn't happen again.
Zhang Hai's father was in hospital, recovering from his leg operation, but he'd developed a fever.
是阳性，当时我一听阳性呢，就是确诊了，就是新冠病毒性肺炎嘛。当时我的心都一凉。那个时候我父亲，他人就是已经陷于昏迷状态了， 医生当时就给我建议啊，所以说可以取下那个呼气机，但是我并没有同意，因为怎么说，我并不死心，我总是希望奇迹可以发生吧，所以说我当时一直守在我父亲的那个床，就是病床前。2月1号的时候，上午的时候啊，我就开车出去了，就是到处找人嘛，去买那个兽医。医院就跟我打电话，就说让我赶紧到医院去。过了一会儿，几个医生就出来跟我宣布，说我父亲死亡了。是我自己，简直就是把父亲送回来送死的，所以说我有一种特别内疚的感觉，同时还有一种特别愤怒的感觉。普通的老百姓对政府，他们是一般怎么说？一般都是相信政府的，所以说既然政府的电视里面都这么说了啊，可防可控，专家也说不存在人传人，所以说很多普通老百姓就相信政府。如果武汉市地方政府他不瞒报的话，我父亲他不会离开我，因为他的瞒报，所以导致这广大的很多人丢掉了宝贵的生命。
January 20th is the dividing line. Before that, the Chinese could have done much better. After that, the rest of the world should be really on high alert and do much better.
I don't think it's clear right now exactly how history is going to view this pandemic. It might have been a case where it was already too late by the time we realized that this virus was spreading. But I think what we can say based on what we know right now, it's clear that there were mistakes that were made, there were clear delays, and many people did suffer the consequences.
If the great coronavirus pandemic of 2020 teaches us anything, it teaches us that we absolutely have to have the kind of, open sharing among scientists and governments about all information. We're all in it together.
What we need is early warning and work together, share information, transparency. Now, all of these need a cultural change and need the political landscape to change. And unfortunately, right now, we're going the opposite direction. I mean, COVID-19 is not going to be the last one, right? Everybody knows that.